This is Hooks and Runs, a podcast about baseball, music, and culture. Here are your hosts, Craig and Rex.
Rex, how are you?
I'm good, Craig.
We're back. This feels like we're really back because last week we did a partial.
Yeah, it was kind of a little partial episode.
Yeah,
this is the first one we're actually back here in the shop again, doing like we're supposed to.
First to last. We do on Hooks and Runs a lot of history, and you know, Rex, one of the things we've always been really interested in is the lives of baseball players. And I know your favorite story is from the 1930s, Shibe Park, when we did the piece on old ballparks, Shibe Park in Philadelphia, the story about calling down to the bullpen and finding out the pitchers in the bar across the street, drinking with the millwrights and the
absolutely,
and the iron workers that couldn't get tickets. And
you could just imagine a couple of fans of the other team in there trying to get him totally sloshed before he's got to go back.
You can't imagine Josh Hader not answering the call in Daikin because he's down the street at the tavern.
Right.
So it's just
hence the wild pitch, right?
It's the wild pitch. So anyway, in baseball was played everywhere in those days. We've talked about. A lot of the players that we've talked about that were Hall of Famers started in really small towns in Class D ball, Class C ball, every little town.
That's kind of one of the things that fascinates me about older baseball and the history of baseball is, all these little minor leagues everywhere, and there's so much, action going on with this. I mean, the minor leagues still exist, but it doesn't feel like people pay attention to them nearly as much as they used to.
Oh, yeah, the even a Class D or Class C ball would be the lead story.
Yeah, it'd be written up in the paper.
In the local paper.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, Rex, is that baseball has been so intertwined with American history. You go to the wars, we've got tons of baseball stories and baseball players involved in World War I, World War II, Korea.
I mean, to be honest, that's how you got me in this. So.
that's how I hooked a history buff into a baseball podcast. So, but a lot of these teams, today the minor leagues have 4 teams. And they have their rookie complex, their complex ball, but 4 traveling teams. And if you go back even to the 50s, that was a time when the Cardinals, some of the bigger teams like the Cardinals and the Yankees or the Dodgers in particular would have up to 20 minor league teams in their system, AAA, AA, then multiple D or C or A ball around the country. And all of these were stocked with players who went on to have lives, and they were connected always to the game because of their play. Anyway, this brings us to our guest, who you've already heard a little bit from. Beverly Winter-Donaho is a resident of the Houston area. She is on the show tonight to talk about her dad. Her dad is named Jim Martin. He was a player in the minor leagues in primarily the West Texas New Mexico League, but also in the Evangeline League. Very famous league of any history buff of baseball. We'll do a show on that one of these days.
Okay, cool.
And also in the Texas League, I believe he played in Shreveport a couple of years. But Jim was a catcher, and I came to know about Jim because I was reading about things that happened in baseball on April 28th, early this year, for a little thing I'm doing on Facebook. And I came across a story about April 28th, 1950 in Abilene, Texas. Jim Martin, playing for the Pampa Oilers of the Class C West Texas New Mexico League, was struck by lightning during a game.
Wow. All right.
And so I went immediately to my newspaper site and started looking for stories and found a couple of stories in the Abilene paper and then a story in the Pampa paper, and then tracked him to when he returned to baseball to play baseball. And just became fascinated. When you hear the story, you're going to be fascinated too. and then one thing led to another, and I tracked down his daughter, Beverly, who's with us today, Beverly Winter-Donaho. Beverly, thank you for coming on to Hooks and Runs and talking about this little slice of Americana and your dad.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm a little nervous because I've never done this before, and talking about my dad is an honor, first of all, and I appreciate that you have tracked me down to share with you about the few stories that I do recall. that he talked incessantly about baseball. And I, as a young woman and as a young girl, I did not take it to heart, and I don't have a diary of his, all of his stories, but there are quite a few that are fun and chuckly, and I don't have stats. But,
Oh, I have the stats. Don't worry.
No, don't worry
Okay.
about that. Craig totally has the stats.
So
it's funny though, Craig, because I kept the stats I was the book. I kept the book for my kid playing through baseball.
yeah, you were one of
And I
those.
still
You were a
have 'em.
scorebook
Oh,
mom.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You got to have one.
And
I coached
I
youth
know.
baseball for about a dozen years, and you got to have somebody that'll keep the book.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
just essential. So if you're the scorebook mom, your son will actually get drafted one or two places higher.
Right.
Well, no, it's funny because now they were done in number 2 pencil, and you can't read them.
Okay.
Oh, no.
They're very old now,
Right.
just like me. But okay, what can we talk about?
Well, I was going to say your dad was born in 1929, and he started his career in baseball with Kilgore of the Lone Star League Class C, and at the age of 18. And I'll tell you, Rex will confirm, every time we run into one of these stories about someone, Jim Gilliam was one at 17, 18 that leaves home
Yeah.
and goes off to play. I'm thinking about 18-year-old. I'm talking about 18-year-old me. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
This
These
would
guys
be
who
this would be
take
a
off from
disaster.
home.
This would be a disaster. What do you know about your dad growing up, and what was it about him that made it possible for him to accomplish all that he did, leaving home at that early age and going to play baseball?
Well, honestly, and I don't know this for an absolute fact, but Daddy was born at the house in Malvern, Arkansas. And when Mom and Dad went to go get married, he represented that he was a year older than he really was, because they didn't have a authenticated birth certificate.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not even sure that he was of age to even play baseball. But he was
Oh, I don't
always,
know.
they
I don't-
called him Little Jim because of his family size.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a big
He
man.
was a big man. He was 6'2".
He was
Wow.
yes, he was a very big man.
A really big man
very
for a catcher.
Built.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loved baseball. Okay.
This is such a common thing, though. And I will tell you that 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago. Today's the 11th. As we're doing this, Joe Nuxall set what was then a major league record for the youngest player to appear in a major league baseball game at age 15 years 11 months. So I don't worry about your dad. I'm not worrying about.
Yeah.
No. But he didn't know.
No. Yeah.
He did not know. That's
I got
what
it.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that he represented to my mother. He represented to the United States government that he was this age, and he later determined that he wasn't that age.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it was.
So do you think
kind of
1929 is correct or incorrect?
Yeah, I think he was 19. I think he was 1930, but
Okay.
I can't confirm that because I've lost.
That's pretty
all those
common.
records
My
from
grandfather
Hurricane
has
Harvey.
the same
Yeah.
between different factions of the family, which year he was born. He was born in Oklahoma when they were still settling it.
Well, I
so-
thought only women did that. So
Oh, I don't know. Well, believe me, baseball players from certain parts of the world will gladly knock a few years off. They go the other way.
Yeah. They go the other way.
They'll go the other way. They'll say, "Well, I'm 18," and it turns out later we found out they were 22 when they signed for that
yeah,
money.
yeah.
So anyway, he did play for Kilgore, Alexandra. Then he ended up in Pampa, and that's where he played most of the time, 1949, 1950. He's 19 and 20 years old, playing probably with men that were quite a bit older and probably some people that were maybe a little younger. So just generally, 1950 Pampa is going to be the focus here in a minute. But what else did he ever share with you? If he didn't talk to you about getting hit by lightning in Abilene, what did he share with you about his playing days?
Well, interesting. He told me about a really good, and I got this information and confirmed this information with my cousin, Jason Martin. He was going up, he was catching for practice with the Red Sox, and Ted Williams came up to bat. And they had a hot dog pitcher that just threw the ball hard, had no control. And he almost beamed Williams. And then the manager went out to the bump and said, hey, are you going to be the first guy that destroys the career of the best hitter in this time? Dad was part of that, huddle
sure.
on the bump. And he said he never threw the ball the same after that.
Oh, really?
Because no, it was like, and I don't know the name of the pitcher, but I do know the batter was Williams. So it was like, and Daddy was just like, it's just like, he was all about the pitchers. He was the catcher, but he could criticize and he could talk trash about every pitcher.
Well, he's on the other end of it, so I mean, he's seeing it right in
Throw
front.
it in the dirt,
and
throw it wide.
And you really don't even appreciate how many throws a catcher does throw versus a pitcher. I mean, because they're up and down, up and down, up and down. And he was just like, oh, you just have no idea how many. And his
especially
arm,
in those days, because, I mean, the pitcher's warming up with the catcher and all that, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of brings up my pet peeve, Rex, about baseball. Why we have so many pitchers on the disabled list today.
Yeah.
They play as a pitcher and
Tommy John.
And then they go catch. It's like, okay, well, we're going to pitch you in the morning, then you're going to catch. And then it's like, well, how many throws is that? That's all the throws.
Right.
Listen, I counted every pitch. Even when my kid was pitching, I was just like, no. And I was that mom that went up to the fence and said, hey,
enough is enough.
Yeah.
You said go ahead.
I'm getting off kilter.
Go ahead. No, you're not.
I do have some fun stories
Go ahead.
about Daddy talking about one year, and I don't know what year it was, but he said that if you hit a home run over the outfield fence, over the mattress advertising, that was on the back fence, you got a mattress. And he got 4 mattresses in one season. And I asked him, I said, well, Daddy, what did you do with them? And he said, well, I sold them to the other players for 25 cents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was
25 cents for a mattress?
What am I going to do? Yeah. What am I going to do with a mattress? 4. And so that was kind of a cute story. And then...
well, normally they pass the hat.
Well, that's what he did.
Yeah.
That's how they got subsidized in their salary.
I always thought, the poor singles hitter that's leading off and getting on base all the time doesn't get a penny.
Yeah.
But
and Daddy said that, well, if you did well, they passed the hat. And if you didn't do well, they didn't pass the hat. And that was kind of an indicative of how you were going to get paid.
Yeah, when I lived in San Antonio, they passed the hat for home runs as late as the mid to late 80s when I was going to minor league players don't get paid very much then or now.
No.
Then or now.
They struggled.
Your dad was a pretty good hitter. He started out in Kilgore, hit 201. That's not very good, but then he hit 257. And in 1949, he hit 257 with a couple of teams. Then in 1950, with Pampa, he hit 301, and he was a pretty good hitter the rest of the way, at least at that level. Now, when he got to Shreveport in the Texas League, that's a lot tougher, and he struggled a bit. But those are really cool.
I think he was in love.
Well, you're right, 1953. We're going to talk about that, too.
He was distracted.
Yeah, he was distracted. There you go. It wasn't the competition. Look at me. I was wrong. So Pampa goes to Abilene at the beginning of the season in 1950 to play the Abilene something. What were they called? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. The Pampa Oilers were playing the Abilene somebodies, and Lightning comes along. Well, I think they were called the Blue Sox because it's Blue Sox Stadium. And during the game, in the early part of the game in the second inning, your dad catching gets popped by lightning. And according to Buck Francis, who was writing for the Abilene Reporter News in the morning edition the next day, it knocked his mask off and left him unconscious. And goes on to say he later recovered in the Abilene dressing room. And was suffering from shock, but not seriously hurt, which I think is hilarious. And I pointed out to Rex.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here and I'm reading the article, and it's like, okay, so 3 physicians come down out of the stands, do CPR on him for 5 minutes, but he's not seriously injured. And it just doesn't strike me as,
Yeah.
But then he gets back up and finishes the game.
No, he doesn't. The game's rained out.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's game rained out, yeah.
The game was
Yeah.
rained out, yeah. But he didn't talk about that. That's kind of interesting to me.
No, he didn't. And I don't know why, other than, he did not, he spoke about it a couple of times about like having a second chance, and like being hit by lightning, but it was in conversation.
Right.
It really wasn't, oh, I was actually hit by lightning. And I think as a young child, that would have just scared me to death. I would have never gone outside,
Yeah.
So he was very protective. He would have never tried to intentionally scare me with something that horrible. But at the same time, I think, hey, he lived through it. He was blessed. It was just like, he didn't really talk about that part of it. He talked about old stories. He talked about playing golf with Mickey Mantle after they were out of baseball.
Well, out of baseball. So how did he meet Mickey Mantle and get around to golfing with him?
Well, Daddy,
by the way, was your dad a drinker? Because otherwise, I don't see how he. Okay, so I don't see how he
Yeah.
plays around the golf with
But
Mickey
I
Mantle.
will be honest with you. He was sober the last 25 years of his life, and he lived until he was 92.
Yeah, I knew he lived a long
It
time.
was even more than that.
No, I was
It
making
was
a fun
more
at
than that.
Mickey Mantle's
Yeah.
expense, not your dad's.
Yeah. Well, no, Daddy he left baseball and he started working for Dresser Magabar out of Homa. And he was in sales and he was a mud man. And he met Mickey because he had oil wells all over Oklahoma.
Wow, good for Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they had a lot in common.
Sure.
And so they played a lot of golf together, but this was after baseball. But
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's playing golf with Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kept in touch with a lot of people that he previously played with, Honestly, Craig, it's funny, I think about him, he always said, yeah, we used to practice against the Negro League.
Sure,
And I was
yeah.
like, well, he goes, those men could hit that ball harder and run faster than any of us white folks.
Well, it was.
He was just like, yeah.
It was a very competitive.
Yeah.
Everything was competitive because a lot of these folks. For the African American players, it was even worse. But for a lot of folks that didn't make it in baseball, it was back to the mills.
Yeah, this was
back to the coal
yeah.
mines.
Right.
But the other thing, I want to go back to 1950. One more thing. This is the most amazing thing. Not that he was, quote, not seriously hurt, but given CPR for 5 minutes. After it was all over, he went back to the hotel. He didn't even go to the hospital.
Well, that's my dad.
Yeah,
And
this
there's
sounds like stubborn man thing right there. More than
I was
anything
like,
else.
no, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm not going
Unless
to the hospital.
I'm broke or, I have something broken or I'm bleeding
exactly,
profusely. Forget it.
It has to be profusely, though, if it's just, and then, okay, so that was the 28th. The 29th, they were rained out again. The 30th, they had a day off. No, the 30th, they played Albuquerque in Pampa. So they're back home for the next game after this rain out, the lightning storm. In the lineup for the Oilers, catcher Jim Martin.
Yeah, he's just right back in there.
Went back in.
Right back in.
Next
Yeah.
game, I'm ready to play, Coach. Put me in. Put me in, Coach.
What's the song say? Yeah, exactly.
Not only was he in the game, he played the whole game, and he went 2 for 5.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
Wow.
He went 2 for
That's
5.
awesome.
And he drove in 2 runs. So, and after they lost that game, they still lost.
Mm-hmm.
Pampa was 3-7 for the season, but they went on to win the regular season title. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
But they lost in the first round of the playoffs to La Mesa. These are like really tiny towns, right?
Oh yeah. But everybody had a baseball team back then,
So
the thing.
I'm going somewhere with that. They lost. They went to 7-game series with La Mesa. The La Mesa was the 4th place team, so first played 4th, second played 3rd, then you have a championship 7-game series.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the league did it.
Right.
They played the last game of the series with La Mesa in Pampa, a town of 16,500 people.
Wow.
For that game, Game 7, 2,894 people showed up for the game. Minor league baseball was a big deal.
Yeah,
in the
it was
1950s.
it was a huge deal. Yeah.
It was a big deal. So they lost, and I don't know. I didn't check if he ever was on a championship team. A playoff championship team. He went to the military. What branch did he serve? This is going to get
Army.
Rex really.
Oh,
Army?
yeah.
Army,
yeah.
yes.
For Korea.
Yeah.
Did he go overseas? What do you know about that?
Yes, he was in Korea, and I still, I wish I had pulled it out, but that's only one of the very few things that survived Harvey, my Hurricane Harvey, is all his military pendants and his accolades and his actual military card. He was a sergeant, and he was stationed in, I don't remember. It was somewhere in Korea.
I was gonna say,
But
not the United States.
He does not. No, he does not. He did not like talking about Korea at all.
Rex,
He did
that's
not
so
like to talk
common.
About war.
Well, Korea was
And-
not a pleasant war.
Well,
I
don't
will
think
tell you this,
was there a
and-
pleasant
and-
war, Rex? You're the war guy.
No. But
North
this
Africa.
I will tell you this: that my daddy would meet the bus while I was working, and he would meet the bus, and my son would come home, and he would play a video game, and it was a shoot 'em up game.
Right.
And he would get so appalled, and he finally turned it off. And he told my son, "War is not a game.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
get killed."
Yeah.
And he was very, very adamant about that. And my kid packed up all his Xbox T-Box or whatever it was, and we took it and gave it away.
Yeah.
So
what?
he was very adamant about that.
What did he watch MASH? This would be like
He did, yes.
What did he think about that
did.
show?
He wasn't a big fan. He thought it was a sensationalized.
Well,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I think that's probably true. We mentioned he served 2 years. He was out of baseball for 2 years. Interesting to me was when he came back, and I know a lot of people served in Korea. Willie Mays was in Korea for a short period of time.
A lot of good players.
A lot of those players served in the military during Korea, some in combat, some in less than combat, but still served. And so he comes back in 1953. Now, he had hit 301, as I mentioned, in Pampa in 1950. Comes back in 1953 playing for Shreveport of a much higher league, the AA Texas League. And this is when he had some trouble. He hit 191, which is not bad today, but probably not enough in the Texas League. But he met your mom. He met your mom. As Rex mentioned, he was in love.
Yeah,
So where was your mom from? Go ahead, Rex. What were you going to say?
They were actually from the same town in Malvern, Arkansas.
Oh, really? Were they dating the whole time? Or did
No.
But he knew her from the past?
He was the age of my mother's oldest sister
Okay.
of 4. And so, yes, no, but he was very smitten with my mother. They had 49 years of marriage together.
Yeah, I knew that they were married for a long time. 2 years in Shreveport, and then he was started a third year, 1955. Now he's 25, and still struggling at the higher level, and ends up going down to Pampa again in 1955, and he hits 308 with, for him, a career high 18 home runs.
Yeah.
No.
And then the next year, 1956. He's a family man now. Does he have? Are you the oldest of the kids? Okay, so he hasn't had kids yet.
Well, I say that, Craig. They had a stillborn 2 years before me.
Okay, so that's still
and that just about tore them up. But
Sure.
I was born in 1960, so my brother would have been 1958.
Okay, so 1956 is his last year in baseball. He's 26 years old. He has, Rex, an amazing season. He hits 328, 31 home runs,
Wow.
118 runs batted in. You know that OPS we talk about sometimes,
Yeah, right.
on base percentage. If you're at 1.00, you're MVP category. His OPS was 1.024.
Nice.
Now, he's probably a little old for the league at 26, but that's incredible. And you would think from there he would get a look, but he didn't play anymore after that. He went to the – go ahead.
Do you know if he chose to give up on baseball, or was it, outer influences?
He never really leaned towards outside influences. He just said more that he needed to make money and concentrate more on being a family man,
Right.
I guess. I mean, he was just like, I had to grow up. That's what he said, basically. I had to grow up and be a man, because I think he was going to, jeopardize maybe their relationship. I don't know. I'm kind of speculating at this point, but
I mean, to be honest,
it's,
there's not a lot of money involved in minor league baseball, especially in that time
no,
period. So,
Yeah,
I
not-
mean,
no.
I can totally see the aspect of I've just gotten married. I'm going to have a family. I need to get a real job.
Well,
It's that
the-
Peter Pan syndrome. I can't be.
The thing that really struck me though was he walked away after his best season ever.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I mean. Most people who walk away after they've hit
That had to been
175.
yeah, that had to have been a hard decision. You're like,
Well,
yeah, I'm on the
you
top of my
know-
game,
Yeah.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, I have a family.
Yeah.
It's a choice he had to make.
So he went to the University of Arkansas,
Yes.
became an engineer. Baseball was a central part of your life and your child's life. You have a son that's played. I mean, I think
Yeah.
once it's in your blood, it's hard to get it out.
I know. And, Daddy went to every single game. I mean, even though, when he was out there with his walker and everything, and
Mhm.
everybody loved him. He was known as Peepaw, and he could always tell the good pitchers and the good catchers and the outfielders and the infielders. I mean, he would and he would encourage those kids. I mean, he was just like the one that would hold the fist up and say, you got this, you got this. And it was so fun to be around him, and because he had a real love of the game. It's a it's a fraternity. It's something that you cannot, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. And this, it's difficult to talk about now because I don't have him here with me because I want to say, tell me again.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
and that's the truth. So, I was going to say, I think a lot of times you can tell the parents in youth baseball that played baseball because, in my opinion, they tend to be a little bit more encouraging and positive, and just like they're happy their children are playing this great game.
Right.
Whereas I think parents who don't have the same background with the game tend to think we got to win every game. You got to get hit every time. It's like it's like yelling at the umps and all this other stuff that goes on in some of these youth games. I always go like, you don't look like you played. I'm sorry.
Right.
You don't look like you played. I think the people, and I've known a lot of parents that played softball or other sports and were really good at it. It's like my child is getting to play.
Well, they've been
And-
on the field.
yeah.
They know the reality of the situation.
The reality is life and death is not going to be decided at this 13-year-old baseball game or something. So
Something does come to mind, though. I will say that when the players went on strike, I remember my dad calling me every single night saying how they were selfish brats.
It's somebody down in the trenches who's made the little bucks.
Selfish brats for going on strike, and because they didn't love the game like they should,
Right.
and they're demanding all these high salaries. But he was very critical of and talked a lot of smack about different pitchers and sidearms, and he's going to have to tear his arm up.
yeah,
But he could always tell me about the catcher pop, getting the pop off the ground. And
framing the pitches.
Alan, my son, his grandson played shortstop, so he was in, complete awe of that.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's all I really have to add. I mean, I don't really recall many other stories of.
I will say in closing that in the Pampa Daily News on April 30th, which is 2 days after the game, they reported that his catcher's mask Rex was found between home plate and third base.
Wow.
So this was no glancing blow.
No. It
I
lit him up.
think if your dad felt like he had got a second chance, I think that's probably an accurate
Well, they
description.
definitely supercharged him for that next game. So
2 for 5. Yeah.
Well,
Beverly,
yeah, but he probably doesn't remember.
he may not. You're right. It's like, they tell me that that's what happened, but I did play 2 days later.
I think I did play.
I came right back and went 2 for
the game
yeah.
again.
Came back and went 2 for 5. So how bad could it really have been, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right,
Beverly,
right.
thank you so much for coming on. We just wanted to get a little slice of Americana, life in small town Texas. Pampa, by the way, is in the northern panhandle. Abilene is kind of on the southern panhandle.
Mm-hmm.
And La Mesa, I have no idea where that is, but I think it's
sparsely
in
populated areas, yeah.
Part
Especially
of,
in this
yeah,
time period.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's less people there now than then, believe it or not.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't even get in the population, but yeah, the county where Pampa is down 30% from where it was in. Anyway, that's demographics. That's not fun. So, Beverly, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing.
Thank you so much for tracking me down. This is just such an honor. And, I mean, you did a lot of work to be able to, get to me, and I appreciate that. And I hope to get a link to listen to it after y'all edit out all my ums and my
absolutely.
hiccups. And thank goodness I didn't, really say something like cuss or something.
I didn't tell you that. I just assumed.
That's my part. That's what he has to cut me out.
It is a Safe for Work podcast. Sometimes that's. I'll tell you a little story about that. Early in the podcast days, within the first year, we got really lucky. I got an interview with the Bill the Spaceman Lee biographer. Now, Bill the Spaceman Lee was, if you know who that is, he was a Red Sox pitcher for many years. A really quirky guy, he got the nickname Spaceman for a reason. He earned it. So anyway, Rex is like,
yeah. This guy's
was
a
it the Boston Red Sox?
Boston Red Sox. Yeah, he pitched in the. He was on the 1975 World Series team, and anyway, he was really good. I mean, he was really one of my favorite players in the 70s because he was so weird. But anyway, I got the biographer, so we're getting into the interview. We're doing the preliminary stuff like we did tonight. Right before we start, the writer, his name was Scott, said, "Oh, by the way, in about 10 minutes, Bill Lee's going to call and get in on the interview."
How fun!
So we're like going that would be insane if it happened. So sure enough, we're 10 minutes or so into the interview and the phone rings.
And nobody's prepared for what's about to happen because Bill comes on and, he's just Bill,
Yeah.
So.
So Bill comes on the interview. And so needless to say, we're not prepared to talk to Bill Lee. We don't have any notes for Bill Lee. So I was kind of the baseball history guy and was alive in 1975. My partner then was not. And so we get into the interview. And you don't have to really do anything but give Bill Lee a prompt.
Yeah. And he starts talking.
But the one thing that we didn't do was tell him that this was a Safe for Work podcast. So that podcast episode still holds the record for the most.
The most bleeps?
The most bleeps. And I was too naive to. Now today I would probably say, "Oh, I got to stop for a second."
Yeah, take a breath and stop for a second. Hey, we're gonna edit some of this out. No, you just let him go.
In those days, I was like,
you're awestruck at this point
because I don't want him hanging up on me.
That is hysterical.
So anyway, that was like a long time ago. That was early 2001, but no, maybe I don't know when it was 2001. But yeah,
you've been doing this for a while then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We started in. I had my original co-host and I started we started talking about it in 2019, and like a lot of things involving me, there's a delay.
Gestation period.
There's a gestation period. And so we finally did our first episode March 15th, 2020. And by the time we came to do our second episode, spring training had been closed. The Final Four was over. Every concert that we were going to was canceled. And it was like we were having to reinvent the show on episode 2. 249th episode.
Well, congratulations on that.
That's
this
fun.
is my very first, and I'm going to put it in my diary as my very first podcast interview. And hopefully I'll make the cut. I'm not sure if I will, but I'm so glad that you called, and you've made my heart full. Reminds me of my dad. I miss him terribly, but this has been fun. It's really been a lot of fun.
Fun for us too. Thanks.
And I look forward to listening to the recording.
You'll get the link. It'll be nice and clean.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on. Have a good night.
Thanks so much, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
That's a really fun little slice of Americana.
It's an interesting side point, at least for me, is what do these guys' kids think about all of this? Because you never talk about that. Nobody ever does.
Well, we've talked about that before. There's families and there's life after baseball for a lot of these people. I mean, when you think about 20, like the Brooklyn Dodgers might have had 22 in the 50s, 21, 22, farm teams, that's probably over 400 players. And you know that of those 400, 97% never tasted the major leagues.
But, you know, one of the things I took away from this, and one of the things I really loved about this was, you know, she told the stories of Pawpaw and whatnot. And you imagine there's this old guy at your ball game, and, you know, he's coaching you, he's encouraging you, he's doing all this. Do you even know who this man actually was?
He actually
played
baseball,
you know,
professionally,
you know,
lived off of his skill for a number of years.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, Rex, since we last spoke on microphones,
yeah,
we'll say, I went with the family to Pittsburgh.
Nice.
I went to not one, but 2 Astro games.
Good.
How'd
y'all do?
Well, the Astros won the first game, 3-0. They lost the second game 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
So I planned this trip some time ago, and I bought a ticket for the first game of the series on Tuesday night that we were there, last Tuesday, which would be the 3rd. The Pirates are terrible, let's face it. If it wasn't for the Rockies, the Rockies and the Marlins have a worse record, but the Pirates are terrible. You know. And they've been terrible for a long time.
Right.
A decade. And so I get to the ballpark, and it turns out, I didn't even look because I was like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
I get to the day of the game, and I find out that their all-world pitcher, Paul Skeens, is on the mound.
Nice.
And our pitcher was going to be Lance McCullers Jr., who's been on the disabled list since 2023, basically.
Wow.
He's had multiple surgeries. He's been injured a lot. And so I'm going like, well, this is going to be not good for us because McCullers has not exactly been sharp since he came back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I get to see Paul Skeens pitch. So we all went to the game. My wife and my daughter and I went to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know was, for some reason, when Paul Skeens pitches, the Pirates simply do not score no matter who's pitching.
Well, you know, that's got to be in keeping with how Pirates are, you know. If you've got the guy out there who could potentially win the game for you, you're obviously not going to score. So
I think I had this right. Christian Walker, I think, hit the first home run in the 7th inning off of Skeens. He had been pitching brilliantly until then. He made one bad pitch. And then in the 9th inning, Isaac Paredes hit a 2-run home run. I may have it flipped, the order, but that's basically the 2 guys that hit home runs. So Houston won 3-0. McCullers pitched like Christy Mathewson. He was unhittable. And which is good. I mean, it was his first win since 2022. That is a long time to wait to get a win.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid what he gets paid.
Yeah, for real.
So the next night, my daughter decided she wanted to go gambling again. They have a casino right down the street from PNC Park. She didn't want to go to the ball game. She wanted to go gambling. So she and my wife went to the casino, and I went back for a game the next day, and Houston lost that one 3-0. This is a beautiful ballpark, the Rex. It's a beautiful ballpark. Its build is it faces out over the Allegheny River, the Roberto Clemente Bridge, and faces downtown Pittsburgh with all the newer buildings, and it's just a beautiful ballpark. And people just don't go to the games. There was a lot of Astro fans.
Mm-hmm.
The Pirate fans, when they would see Astro fans, would grumble and be very angry with the Astros over the sign stealing thing. And I'm going like, of all the teams,
it didn't have anything to do with you guys.
Yeah. This had nothing to do with teams that lost 96 games that year.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
In the other league. So, but they have.
You guys could have been banished in trash cans, and it still wouldn't have helped.
It's like we can't hate the Pirates the whole time. And anyway, we were you
got to hate somebody. Can't be my fault.
We get tired of hating the Pirates are in bad shape. They're and the whole question about Paul, and this is a shame about the whole deal. Paul Skeens is such a brilliant pitcher. He gets beat 1-0, 2-0. If he makes any mistake, the game's over. The Pirates are not going to score.
Right.
I think I read that his ERA
is too much pressure on one guy.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. And then for 4 games you get to see now like I say, people do have good games. The pitcher in the next game that shut us out with help from the bullpen, he came into the game with an ERA of like 8 something. He made like 3 or 4 starts and got hit around, but the Astros that day didn't do it. But like I said, so speaking of parks, not only did I go twice to PNC Park, which I loved every minute of it.
Right.
We went to the University of Pittsburgh campus and saw the remnants of Forbes Field.
Nice.
So if you go,
what all of Forbes Field is still there?
There's not a lot there. There's section of the outfield wall. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with Forbes Field, for example, if you're familiar with Forbes Field, the famous shot of Mazeroski hitting the home run that was taken from an angle down the left field line, and he hit the ball over the left field scoreboard.
Right.
That part of the fence is gone. But if you keep going around toward the part that includes deepest left center at 457 feet from home field, a 12-foot brick fence, that's still there.
Okay.
And then it comes around to dead center field at 436 feet is still there. And then it comes around a little further into right center field. So that little
section right there,
that little section is still there. And also you can go into Posver Hall, which is one of the buildings on the University of Pittsburgh campus. Mm-hmm. And in the hallway, the main hallway of Posver Hall, is a glass encased home plate.
Right.
Which was the home plate that was there at Forbes Field in the final game.
Okay. Now you told me off camera that luckily they moved it because the original position is actually in the women's restroom.
Well, I read that. I'm not sure that's accurate. I read that in one spot, and then I read that the original position would have been in the library.
Okay.
The economics library. But it's a better story if it's in the women's restroom.
It's just funnier that way.
So we were there in the hall and taking pictures of the home plate, and they were doing tours of some sort, maybe future students or whatever. So we asked one of the tour guides about, we said something. They saw us taking the pictures. We were the touristy people.
Right.
And she said something to my wife or whatever, and it was like, students believe if you step on the home plate before an exam, you'll have good luck.
There you go.
So I kind of feel like, that's a part of the culture of the school.
That's nifty.
And
like that,
between Posver Hall and the center field fence, there's now a street, and that street is called Roberto and Vera Clementi Drive.
Cool.
And
I mean,
the greatest pirate was the second greatest pirate. Maybe.
There you go.
Him and Johannes Wagner.
And street through the baseball park. It's nothing new. We used to have railroads through the baseball park, so it's great to go.
Build them on top of dumps, trains underneath ball. There's been all kinds of things.
Oh, it's good stuff, man.
All kinds of things. Yeah. So anyway, Forbes Field was in use. If you go back to our 3-part series, it took us over a year to complete.
Oh yeah, the concrete and steel ballpark.
It was the first one.
Yeah, we talk about that one.
First one.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun. So I was fun trip. I'll tell you, Pittsburgh was a blast. And here's the thing I learned about Pittsburgh. Next year in April, the NFL draft will be in Pittsburgh.
Really?
And that is a football crazy town. It's going to be absolutely insane. We were at a bar in Little Italy in Pittsburgh, and the bartender was really friendly and it wasn't crowded. And he was telling us, you got to come back. It's going to be insane. And I said, look, dude, we don't live here.
Yeah.
I guarantee you every hotel room's already booked.
Oh, absolutely.
They might have introduced that or made that announcement on Tuesday in Pittsburgh, of all places. And by Friday, every hotel or anything that could possibly look like a hotel was booked.
Every Airbnb, all of it.
The whole bit.
You got to know somebody whose couch you can crash on.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be insane. It's going to be wild. Well, this year was in Green Bay, another football crazy town. And I don't know how they did it, because what's in Green Bay besides the stadium? It's not even a big town.
I have no idea.
I don't know what's in Green Bay. It's like a town of nothing. It's like 100,000 people. Nothing by NFL standards.
Yeah.
It's no Dallas. Let's put it that way.
Its hospitality industry really got a boost, to say that.
Yeah, exactly. People brought tents.
Yeah.
People brought tents to stay for the Green Bay draft. I don't know. Hey, I got to tell you, Rex, last week I mentioned, was it last week or before? When did I go to Death Heaven?
No, last week we talked about Death Heaven.
Last week we talked about Death Heaven, and you made a little comment when I said that I felt like I was a little out of place.
Yeah.
because I was dressed in a gray polo shirt and blue jeans at a Deaf Heaven concert. I was editing the show.
Yeah,
and
I finally heard what I said.
I heard what you said, and it kind of made me feel like I got to up the ante on my concert going wardrobe.
You might want to. It's okay.
I have no idea how to do that, but what are you supposed to wear to these shows, Rex? I don't even know.
Well, try not to dress like it's 1979. First of all.
No, that would be the flowery open collar.
As a nerd in 1979, Craig. Let's be honest with each other.
I was going to say, you're talking about John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever.
You weren't that cool. Neither one of us were, but okay. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll help you out, Craig. I'll help you with some wardrobes.
It's the Astros are in first place. The Mariners are 3 games back. It's going to be a dogfight between those two teams. The American League West, Rex, has become the old American League Central.
Yeah.
Because in the American League Central, with the best record in baseball, the Detroit Tigers. And the Indians and Twins are not bad. So all of a sudden, the Central got good for some reason. And the West has become not so good.
Yeah.
And then the Yankees, of course, are leading in the whatever. Yeah. But in the National League West, which I know you're paying close attention to, the Padres, the Giants, and the Dodgers are in an absolute death match.
Hey, we've lost 2 to the Dodgers, but there was that one 11-1 victory. I'm just going to say, I was not going to let this podcast go and not say about that.
Oh no, you should. But here's the funny thing about that: I don't even know who the guy's name was, but the Padres chased the starter early in the game, and then they brought in like the guy, the 12th pitcher, the number 12 pitcher, and basically they said you're going to get 100 pitches. They can be a good result or a bad result, but it was like the old school, they used to send the pitcher out to like, you got to finish the game, dude.
Yeah,
you got to finish the game. You may not get anybody out for a while, but you got to finish the game.
And this is the modern day equivalent of it. You're going to pitch as many pitches as you can pitch, but here
we're going
to
give you 100 pitches, make your best of them. He ended up giving up like 13 hits in 4.5 innings, 4 1/3 innings.
Yeah.
And 9 runs or something. I don't know if they've still got him on the roster, but it was pretty ugly. But it's like, that's the way it used to be in baseball. It was like, okay, the game's out of control. Somebody's got to come in and eat up the rest of the innings.
You already know
good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, you already know it's a train wreck. So just go ahead and
We're not going to throw every pitcher. We're going to save them.
Yeah.
Save some. So they had to bring somebody in because it was like a long way to go. But 11-1. I'm noticing you'll look at like ESPN or whatever for the score. For the scores the next day, and it'll be like a bunch of low-scoring games, and then somebody's going to haul off and beat somebody 11-1. Or I think there was a 16-4 game recently. It's like, what gets into them?
It just runs away.
I don't know.
This is how it is.
Yeah, we're happy to be back. Happy to be back at Crazy Carl's.
Oh yeah,
and chilling here on a weekday. And so, listen, we will be back. We appreciate you for hanging with us during our little break, our little respite in the month of May. But we will be back through the end of the year and hopefully beyond that. So until next Thursday, take care. Be safe out there.
This has been Hooks and Runs, a podcast about baseball, music, and culture. If you like what you heard in this episode, share the podcast to your social media or tell a friend about us. Hooks and Runs will be back next Thursday. We hope to see y'all then. Thank y'all for listening.